Good day, students. I am Dr. Smita Sharma, Associate Professor in Physics, Government Dungar College, Bikaner. In this lecture, I will discuss some terms that are used in basic electronics. First of all, what is electronics? The word electronics is derived from electron mechanics. This means study of behavior of an electron under different conditions of externally applied fields. So, how will the electron behave when different types of fields are applied? That study is known as electronics. Now, what is an electronic circuit? An electronic circuit is a complete course of conductors through which current can travel. These circuits provide a path for current to flow, but this path must start and end at the same point. That is, the circuit must form a loop, otherwise current will not flow. An electronic circuit and an electrical circuit has the same definition, but electronic circuits tend to be low voltage circuit. This is the basic difference between electronic circuit and electrical circuit. Now, the electronic components. An electronic circuit may appear quite complicated and may be capable of performing fantastic functions. But if we see any electronic circuit, however complicated it might be, it is made up of few basic components. If we speak of components, there are only 5 components, basic components. Out of these, 3 are passive and 2 are active. So in the chart below, it is seen that electronic component is divided into passive and active components. Passive components are resistors, capacitors, inductors, and active components are generally tube devices or semiconductor devices. Now the question arises, what is the difference between active and passive components? So what are active and passive components? Active components are the elements or devices which are capable of delivering energy to the circuit. They require external source to operate. But passive components do not require external source to operate. They are capable of storing energy in the form of voltage or current in the circuit, but they are incapable of delivering energy to the circuit. So in the figure, if it is seen that the passive components are capacitors, inductors, resistors. They help active components to deliver energy to the circuit. These are active components: transistors, SCR, MOSFET, diodes. These all are active components and they have a defined task. Now, what are active and passive networks? So, an active network contains at least one voltage source or current source that can supply energy to the network indefinitely. So, if we have an electrical circuit and it has a voltage source or a current source, then it is called an active network. A passive network does not contain an active source. What is source? A source is a device which converts any form of energy into electrical energy. It is an active network element meant for generating electrical energy. Now, source is also of two types in electrical network. That is, one is voltage source and other is current source. Now, voltage source is a two-terminal device whose voltage at any instant of time is constant and is independent of the current drawn from it. It means if we draw any current from that voltage source, the voltage will remain constant. Such a voltage source is an ideal voltage source and it has zero internal resistance. But in practice, no ideal voltage source exists. Each voltage source have small internal resistance. So voltage does not remain, it may be almost constant, but it does not remain constant with time, with respect to time. An ideal current source is also a two-terminal circuit element that supplies the same current to any load across the components. It has infinite resistance, but in the same way as the voltage source, it also ideal current source does not exist. Practically, it delivers different amount of current to different types of loads. Now, what is a signal? A signal is a function that conveys information about a phenomena. So, how will we define a signal in electronics? It refers to any time varying voltage, current, or electromagnetic wave that carries information. There are two main types of signals in electronics. First is analog signal and another is digital signal. Now we will see what do we mean by analog signal and digital signal. First of all, analog signal. So this is basic representation of an analog signal. An analog signal is a continuous wave that changes over a time period as seen by the figure. It is represented by a sine wave. To describe the analog signal, the parameters that are used are amplitude, period, frequency and phase. Now what does amplitude do? Amplitude marks the height of the signal. Frequency marks the rate at which signal is changing, and phase marks the position of the wave with respect to time 0. Now, this analog signal is more prone to distortion as it is not immune to noise. Basically, noise adds up to this signal. So, the quality of transmission generally decreases. And basically, analog signal transmits data and it transmits data in form of a wave. The best example that we can give for an analog signal is the human voice. Now, what is a digital signal? Now, this is basic diagram of a representation of a digital signal. A digital signal is a discrete wave that carries information in binary form. It is represented by a square wave as shown in figure. Now, digital signal is described by bit rate and bit intervals. Now, what is bit rate and bit interval? Bit interval describes the time required for sending a single bit, and bit rate describes the frequency of bit interval. It has a finite numbers 0 and 1. It can exist, it has two states only. Either it is 0 or it is 1. It can exist in only two states. This is the basic difference between digital signal and analog signal. Analog signal exists at every if we consider it with respect to time, it exists at every point, while in digital signal it has only two states. A digital signal is more immune to the noise, hence it is less prone to distortion. Again, digital signal, because it has finite numbers 0 and 1, it carries data in binary form. They are easier to transmit and are more reliable because noise addition is very less, so they are more reliable as compared to analog signal. Now, example for it, the best one example is the signals used for transmission in a computer. Now, what is analog and digital electronics? Now, analog electronics is a field of electronics involving electronic systems with a continuously variable signal. If a signal is continuously changing, and the study of that electronic system in which these signals are used, that is comes in the category of analog electronics. A digital electronics is a field of electronics involving the study of digital signals and the engineering of devices that use or produce them. So, this is the basic difference between analog electronics and digital electronics. However, both are used to transmit signals from one place to another. It can be either audio, video, any. Digital systems always use binary format as 0 and 1. It is either low state or high state, whereas analog system uses electronic pulses with varying magnitude to send data. So, in better way we can say digital system use square waves and analog system uses sine wave. So, this we have discussed the basic electronics that should be known to us before starting digital electronics, analog and digital electronics, because in this in MSc final, the paper is digital electronics and digital electronics communication. So we have taken the prior knowledge of analog and digital electronics. Now we can start the topics related to these that are included in analog electronics and digital electronics in the next lectures. Thank you.